In this chapter, we'll be looking at some new techniques to save you time and a lot of wasted effort in your code. We're going to look first of all at subroutines and then at modules and packages. Both of these are elements within the Perl programming language designed to give you the ability to reuse code and encapsulate code within logical structures. To explain why it's useful to use snippets of code, I've put together a little real-world example of a procedure that we carry out commonly. Here is the steps we go through to make a cup of tea. We turn on the kettle and then we wait until the water boiled. Effectively, we're putting ourselves into a loop in which we may do other things, but in terms of our simple routine here, we're in a loop, and then as soon as the water's boiled, we pour it over the tea bag and add some milk. This is a simple routine for making a cup of tea with no sugar. Here's a very similar routine. We're putting on the kettle, we're still in the loop waiting for the water to boil. Once it has boiled, we're using coffee instead of tea, and we're using 2 sugars. So there are similarities between these routines. There's a lot of common stuff as well between them. If we were to think of it in terms of a program, these 2 parts of the procedures are duplicated, and the parts that are different are similar as well. We're still pouring the hot water over some kind of substance, and then we're adding something to the resulting cup of hot beverage. The differences can be summed up here. So in order to create an effective subroutine that is able to handle both, we first have to analyze exactly what are the differences between the 2 procedures. Differences in this case are tea versus coffee, and whether to use milk and whether to use sugar. Here is a stripped down version of the beverage making routine. Instead of specifying exactly what kind of beverage we're making, we just use a variable here, flavor. The same goes for the milk becomes optional, and then we add a variable number of sugars to the drink. So now we've created a flexible beverage making routine. In terms of using this kind of principles in Perl, we're defining a procedure once that we can then use many times. So our procedure is versatile, that's the key. Make a cup of white coffee with no sugar is the way we invoke the routine. We don't need to tell all the steps, we don't need to refer to turning on the kettle or boiling the water, we just have to refer to the general making a cup of something, and then all the rest is taken for granted. Similarly, with our routine here, we're able to use specific parameters, the flavor, the milk requirement, and the number of sugars, to reuse that same procedure.